The Wright brothers took their first flight in 1903, barely getting off the ground. And now we send astronauts into space for long stretches of time.
Liftoff.
Despite every advance, there is a human reality: the stress on the body in space.
What you see in front of you is 245,000 pounds.
Enter the Kraken.
Okay, run in 3, 2, 1.
Named for a mythical, massive, tentacled sea creature capable of dragging ships beneath the waves, this Kraken sits on dry land at the Naval Medical Research Unit on Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio.
And so it sits on top of a large gear, planetary gear, and there are 8 planetary motors underneath that.
Retired U.S. Navy Captain Rich Folga is the head of the Naval Aerospace Medical Research Device Program.
The turntable is about 35.5 feet in diameter, and then that contains the entire moving structure. So that's our planetary axis. That whole rotating system controls all 6 axes inside of it.
This disorientation research device spins occupants in multiple directions, simulating the disorientation astronauts experience during spaceflight. The Kraken is the star of the SWAN study, funded by a grant from NASA. It's a collaboration between NASA, Johns Hopkins and Emory universities, and the Naval Medical Research Unit in Dayton.
They don't have a Kraken, we don't have their expertise, but when you put the two together, now you can run an experiment that has significant interest, not just for Department of Defense, but for the US government. And in this case, with space, it's national strategic strategy.
Kraken Cam is my baby.
The trial has 2 goals: to give astronauts a tool to help their motion sickness, and to hopefully help some of the millions of people on Earth who live with balance and dizziness issues.
About a third of the population have a problem with their balance system.
At the core of this research is the vestibular system, which is smaller than a dime, but capable of causing big issues.
We're going to ask that you walk the perimeter.
Researchers Michael Schubert and Colin Grove are vestibular physiologist and physical therapist.
Have you turn around this time?
And while the Kraken is the star of the study, the unsung hero is our vestibular system. Think of it as our body's balance and motion control center, tucked away inside our inner ear.
It's an awesome soft tissue organ. You have 2 of them actually inside the temporal bone, and it exists of 3 organelles that detect rotational movement and 2 organelles that detect acceleration.
It's what keeps us steady when we walk and lets us know when we're upside down.
The vestibular system is always working, and that's in part because it detects gravity.
But in space, where there's no gravity pulling on these structures like normal, astronauts can get disoriented. There's a couple different theories about space motion sickness. Sensory conflict theory is that your brain gets signals from your body, and that what you see and what you feel in your inner ear has to match. And when it doesn't, you get motion sickness. Grove explains the other theory of motion sickness:
otolith mass asymmetry theory, which basically states that there's more gravity sensing crystals in one inner ear than the other. In a normal human being who's earthbound, that's compensated for. Our body deals with that. And then you go up into space and your brain has to make an adjustment. And so now what we've normally been adjusting to on Earth, that little bit of difference between our 2 balance systems, is thrown off.
T-minus 10, 9, 8.
Space motion sickness has become a bigger issue as astronauts space travel for longer periods of time.
Their motion sickness is likely being induced by that transition from one gravitational environment to another, from normal gravity here on Earth to microgravity in space.
Healthy service members are participants in the trial, spending an hour in the capsule at the heart of the Kraken.
In order to achieve the sustained acceleration, we're going to move it off the center and then create a centrifugation. And then we're going to bring them up to speed, which in our case is roughly 125 degrees per second, and we're going to rotate them for an hour to achieve the centrifugation effects on their perceptual system mostly the vestibular system. And we want them to get a certain level of motion sickness, but being humans, they're all a little bit unpredictable.
Halfway there. Breathe normal.
After that hour in the capsule, half of the participants will rest to recover,
Does that dot seem like it's right in front of you?
but the other half will use a patented device, Stabilize with active neurofeedback.
Once you start, we want you to adjust the knob continuously to match your current level of motion sickness.
It includes wearing goggles that have sensors in them to detect head motion.
Stabilize is a patented technology that we developed that changes the function of the vestibulocular reflex. The VOR is a reflex that keeps your eyeballs still during head movement.
Okay, all the way to the center.
The exercise for this study, for the SWAN study, is a graded head movement exercise. So the subjects begin the exercise by starting to move their head very slowly and in a very small amplitude. And then the SWAN device guides them through what they see on the wall in front of them and through the auditory feedback to gradually move their head more and more and more and more.
First, we move your head from side to side.
And that's that graded exposure to head movement, gradually ramping that up, is what we think is key to this working.
We're gonna do one more lean all the way to the left.
They only do it after they land, after the flight is done, and they're recovering from that.
This do-it-yourself approach to motion sickness is critically important because when NASA sends astronauts to Mars, they will have to recover from changes in gravity in order to complete their mission.
I think the overarching goal of SWAN is to have a validated, self-automated rehab tool. That is, we can provide people in the military that are out in austere environments a way to treat their dizziness and balance symptoms.
It's also essential for people on Earth who need to function in their daily lives.
That's really the greater goal, is to give people, put in the hands of people to treat themselves. That's the end game.